You're at the shelter, and there's this dog looking at you through the kennel door with those eyes. You know the eyes I'm talking about, the ones that make you temporarily forget that you're a rational adult with a budget and bills, and a landlord who charges a pet deposit. Your brain shuts off and your heart takes over, and somewhere between "let me just look" and signing the adoption papers, you've committed to a financial obligation that's going to follow you around for the next 10 to 15 years. And you have absolutely no idea how much it's actually going to cost. The adoption fee was $150, maybe $300 if you went through a rescue. You bought a bag of food, a collar, a leash, a bed, and some toys. Let's call it $500 total to get started. That feels manageable. That feels responsible. You even told yourself you'd keep costs reasonable because you're not one of those people who spends ridiculous money on a pet. Fast forward 12 months, and you've spent $3,000, and you genuinely cannot figure out where it all went. My name is Kai, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why the expenses that seem small and predictable always end up being massive and relentless. If you've ever wondered why having a pet feels so much more expensive than you planned, or you're thinking about getting one and want to know the real numbers before you commit, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button if this helps you budget for reality instead of fantasy. Here's something most people don't realize until it's too late. The upfront cost of getting a pet is maybe 5% of what you'll actually spend over that animal's lifetime. The food, the thing everyone thinks about when they calculate pet costs, that's not even close to the biggest expense. The real money goes to places most people never think to budget for, and it adds up with a consistency that would impress your mortgage company. Let's start with the number that's going to frame this entire conversation. The most commonly cited lifetime cost of owning a dog is between $15,000 and $20,000. That's the number you'll find in most articles, and it's what people repeat when they're convincing themselves they can afford a pet. For some breeds, even that baseline jumps to $25,000 to $30,000. Cats are cheaper, but still run $12,000 to $15,000. But here's the problem with those figures. They tend to leave out entire categories of spending, or they assume nothing ever goes wrong. These are the numbers that look right on paper and fall apart in real life. Most people hear those numbers and immediately think, that can't be right. My dog eats $50 worth of food a month. That's $600 a year. Over 12 years, that's $7,200. Where's the other $10,000 coming from? And that question is exactly why this topic matters, because the answer is going to change how you think about pet ownership. Let's break it down category by category, and I want you to pay attention to which expenses you've thought about and which ones never crossed your mind. Food is the obvious one, so let's get it out of the way first. A medium-sized dog eating decent quality food costs roughly $40 to $70 per month. Call it $660 a year at the midpoint. Over 12 years, that's about $7,900. Not cheap, but predictable. This is the number everyone calculates when they're thinking about getting a pet, and it's the reason people think they can afford one. The food math checks out. It's everything else that doesn't. Veterinary care is where the real financial damage starts, and it comes at you from two directions. There's the routine stuff you can plan for, and there's the emergency stuff that shows up at the worst possible time and empties your bank account before you've finished processing what just happened. Routine vet visits run $200 to $400 per year. That covers annual checkups, vaccinations, flea and tick prevention, and heartworm medication. Not dramatic, totally manageable. But that's the baseline. The moment anything goes wrong, and something always goes wrong, the numbers change completely. A single emergency vet visit averages $800 to $1,500. Your dog eats something it shouldn't, $1,200. Torn ACL from jumping off the couch wrong, $3,000 to $5,000 for surgery. Cancer treatment, $5,000 to $10,000, easily. Dental cleaning, which most dogs need at some point, $500 to $1,000. Allergies that require ongoing medication, $100 to $300 per month for as long as the animal lives. And here's the part that nobody tells you when you're staring at that puppy. Over a dog's lifetime, the average owner spends $4,500 to $8,000 on veterinary care beyond the routine stuff. That's not the annual checkup. That's the phone call at 10 p.m. when your dog is limping and you're driving to the emergency vet knowing this is going to hurt your wallet almost as much as it's hurting your pet. And emergency vet clinics charge a premium because they can. After-hours surcharges of $150 to $300 just to walk through the door. Then the exam, the imaging, the treatment. You're sitting in a fluorescent waiting room at midnight watching a bill climb past $2,000, and there is no version of you that wants to say no. If you can pay it, you pay it. And if you can't, that's where the guilt starts, and it never fully goes away. The emotional component makes this category uniquely devastating financially. When your dog is sick or injured, you're not comparison shopping. You're not asking if there's a budget option. You're scared, you love this animal, and you'll pay whatever it takes. The veterinary industry understands this dynamic. They're not villains. Most vets genuinely care. But the pricing exists within a system where the customer has zero negotiating power because the alternative to paying is watching your pet suffer. Let me pause here because we're only 2 categories in and the math is already getting uncomfortable. Food plus veterinary care over a 12-year lifespan puts you somewhere between $12,000 and $18,000. And we haven't talked about the expenses that most people never even consider pet expenses. Grooming is one that catches people off guard, especially with breeds that need regular professional attention. If your dog needs grooming every 6 to 8 weeks, you're looking at $50 to $90 per session. That's $400 to $750 per year. Over 12 years, that's $4,800 to $9,000 just on haircuts for an animal. Even short-haired dogs need occasional baths, nail trims, and basic grooming that runs $30 to $50 per visit. It's not as dramatic, but it's still money leaving your account on a regular schedule. Then there's boarding and pet sitting. Every time you travel, your pet needs to be somewhere. This is the expense that creates a shadow cost on top of another already expensive thing. Boarding facilities charge $25 to $75 per night, depending on your area. Some places charge $100 or more for premium boarding, with individual rooms and daily play sessions. Pet sitters run $20 to $50 per visit, or $50 to $100 per night if they stay at your home. If you take 2 trips per year, and each one is 5 days, you're spending $250 to $750 annually just on keeping your pet cared for while you're gone. Over 12 years, that's $3,000 to $9,000. And notice what's happening here. Your vacation, which we already know costs way more than you think, now has an additional line item that exists solely because you have a pet. Your pet's expenses follow you even when you leave them behind. Pet insurance is the expense that creates its own ironic math problem. You get it because vet bills are expensive and unpredictable. Smart move. Except the average policy runs $30 to $60 per month for dogs, and it often doesn't cover pre-existing conditions, breed-specific issues, or routine care. That's $360 to $720 per year, or $4,300 to $8,600 over a pet's lifetime. Some people will pay more in premiums than they ever receive in covered claims. Others will have one catastrophic emergency that makes the insurance feel like the best decision they ever made. It's a gamble either way, and it's money going out the door every single month, regardless. Here's the category that nobody calculates and everybody pays: housing costs. If you rent, you're paying a pet deposit, typically $200 to $500, plus pet rent of $25 to $50 per month on top of your regular rent. That's right, landlords charge you monthly just for having an animal in the unit. Pet rent alone adds up to $300 to $600 per year. Over a 12-year span, that's $3,600 to $7,200 in additional housing costs just because an animal lives in your apartment. And that's before you factor in the deposit you might not get back if there's any damage when you move out. If you own your home, the costs show up differently, but they still show up. Scratched hardwood floors that need refinishing, stained carpets that need replacing, chewed baseboards, damaged door frames, a yard that needs extra maintenance and fencing. A single hardwood floor refinish can run $1,500 to $4,000. Replacing carpet in one room is $500 to $1,500. These aren't catastrophic individual expenses, but they accumulate into thousands of dollars in home repairs and reduced property value over the years that nobody ever attributes to the pet. You just think of it as normal home wear and tear, except it wouldn't have happened without the animal. Now let's talk about the stuff that fills up your cart every time you walk into a pet store or scroll through Amazon at midnight. Toys, treats, beds, crates, carriers, leashes, collars, harnesses, cleaning supplies, odor eliminators, replacement items for everything your pet destroys. Most pet owners spend $200 to $500 per year on supplies and accessories. Over 12 years, that's $2,400 to $6,000. None of these purchases feel significant in the moment. A $15 toy here, a $30 bed there, a $25 bag of premium treats because your dog deserves it. And this is where the pet industry has learned exactly the same trick as every other industry that monetizes emotion. They don't sell you a $6,000 product. They sell you $15 worth of love, 400 times. Every purchase feels small, justified, and separate from every other purchase. But it's the same pattern that quietly drains people across every category of spending. Each transaction is forgettable. The total is not. Let's bring this together. And the reason this list gets long isn't because you're choosing luxury. It's because life happens, and pets are alive, and alive things cost money in ways you can't predict or avoid. Food over 12 years, $7,900. Routine vet care, $4,000. Emergency and non-routine vet care, $6,000. Grooming, $5,000. Boarding and pet sitting, $5,000. Insurance, $5,500. Housing costs, $4,500. Supplies and accessories, $4,000. Training, which I haven't even mentioned, but a basic obedience course runs $150 to $300, and most dogs need at least one, $300. And there's one final cost that nobody wants to think about, but it's real and it's significant. End-of-life care. When your pet gets old or seriously ill, euthanasia costs $50 to $300. Cremation runs $100 to $300. If you choose to pursue palliative care in those final months, you're looking at $500 to $2,000 in medications, special food, and comfort treatments. The end of your pet's life is one of the most emotionally brutal experiences most people go through, and it comes with a bill. Total estimated lifetime cost, approximately $42,200 for a dog. Now that's not the bare minimum. You could own a dog for less if you skip insurance, never board them, and get lucky on health. But this isn't the luxury version either. This is the cost of being the kind of owner most people want to be. Regular vet visits, decent food, proper care when things go wrong, someone watching them when you travel. Responsible ownership. That's what $42,000 buys. And if you want to know where the real damage comes from, 3 categories do most of the heavy lifting: veterinary emergencies, housing impact, and travel-related costs. Those 3 alone can account for more than half the total, and they're the 3 that almost nobody budgets for when they adopt. For a cat, the numbers are lower but still substantial. Less grooming, no boarding in most cases, cheaper food. But veterinary costs, litter, supplies, and housing expenses still push the lifetime total to $15,000 to $25,000. Now here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. Most people who get pets don't budget for these numbers. They budget for food and maybe a vet visit. That's it. Everything else shows up as a surprise, and surprises are the enemy of financial progress. This is the same pattern we see everywhere. The advertised cost of something gets you emotionally committed, and then the real cost reveals itself slowly, over months and years, in increments small enough that you never fully process the total. The shelter says the adoption fee is $150. Your brain files pet cost as $150 plus food. The other $40,000 arrives in installments so gradual that you never see it as a single decision. But it is a single decision. The day you adopted that dog, you committed to a 5-figure financial obligation. You just didn't know it yet. And here's what makes pets uniquely dangerous as a financial blind spot compared to houses or cars. You can sell a house, you can trade in a car, you can downgrade, refinance, walk away. But once you bond with an animal, there is no exit strategy that doesn't feel like abandonment. You're emotionally locked in from month 1, and the costs have 12 years of runway to compound. Every other major financial commitment in your life has an escape valve. This one doesn't. The only way out is through, and through costs $40,000. Some of you are thinking, Kai, are you saying people shouldn't have pets? No. Pets genuinely improve people's lives. There's real research showing that pet ownership reduces stress, and lowers blood pressure, and improves mental health. For a lot of people, their pet is the best relationship they have. I'm not arguing against any of that. What I am saying is that getting a pet without understanding the full financial picture is the same mistake people make with houses, cars, and vacations. You see the sticker price, you ignore the total cost of ownership, and you end up financially strained by something that was supposed to bring you joy. That strain doesn't just affect your bank account, it affects your ability to give that animal the care it deserves. The number one reason pets end up back in shelters is because their owners can't afford them. That's not a failure of love, that's a failure of math. The pet industry is a $150 billion business in the United States. It's that big because people love their animals and will spend almost anything to keep them healthy and happy. That's a beautiful impulse, but it's also an impulse that the industry is built to monetize at every turn, from premium food brands to subscription toy boxes, to boutique grooming, to pet insurance you may never use. The solution isn't to avoid getting a pet. The solution is to budget like you're adopting a small, furry financial dependent, because that's exactly what you're doing. Know the real number. Plan for the real number. And if the real number doesn't fit your financial life right now, it's better to wait than to bring an animal into a situation where money stress compromises the care you can provide. If you look at these numbers and say, yeah, $40,000 over 12 years is worth it for the companionship and the unconditional love of this animal, that's a grown-up decision, and I respect it completely. That's about $3,500 a year, roughly $290 a month. But know what that $290 means. If you invested it instead, earning 8% annually, after 12 years, you'd have roughly $65,000. After 20 years, over $170,000. That's not a reason to skip the dog. That's the price tag on the trade. And if you make that trade knowing exactly what it costs, you'll never resent it. The problem is, when people don't know they're making the trade at all, they think they're spending $50 a month on kibble. They're actually committing $290 a month to a living creature that can't be returned, refinanced, or downgraded. People who build wealth don't avoid the things they love. They price them honestly before they commit. They know exactly what they're signing up for, and they make room for it in their plan instead of discovering the cost one emergency vet bill at a time. That dog at the shelter looking at you with those eyes? It deserves an owner who can afford to take care of it properly for the next 12 years. Make sure that's actually you before you sign the papers, because the adoption fee is $150. Everything after that is the part nobody warned you about.